So all our zucchini go into this pot, and there's no real measurements. The pot is really what dictates. You put your zucchini in a pot, you put some water in the pot, spill a little water on the stove as you're putting it in the pot, but you put the water about an inch or an inch and a half below the zucchini. Crank up the heat, put a lid on it, and we're going to chop some garlic to go in it. So we have zucchini and water and garlic. It's that simple. 3 ingredients. I'm just going to coarsely chop this garlic up. Really what's happening, and the reason I make the joke and tell people about the tea, is because if you think about making a cup of tea, I mean, you pull a cup out, you put hot water in the cup, and you put something to flavor the water. So we are flavoring this water with the chopped garlic and the zucchini. So the zucchini is going to be bathed in a garlic broth. Just going to put my garlic in here. Now, when I was a kid growing up, we ate this as a soup, we ate this as a side dish, and we ate this as an entire meal. I'm not going to put any salt and pepper until it's done. Growing up, I always sat next to my grandfather. We had Sunday dinners together all the time. My grandparents would come. I had some great aunts that used to come. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And my grandfather was just such a very loving, kind man. He was this very proper Italian gentleman, and he wore a tie to dinner every single night. Even if he had a flannel shirt on, he'd put a tie on. May have looked a little ridiculous, a plaid flannel shirt and a polka dot tie, but he was a true gentleman, a gentleman's gentleman. And when we were sitting next to one another, if we had this zucchini dish, he knew that I loved the garlic. And sometimes my mother would prepare this, and she would put whole cloves of garlic and cook it very slow and long, and that garlic would just melt in your mouth when you got it. It was so sweet and wonderful that I would be looking like it was a prize. You know, you open your box of cereal as a kid and you look for the prize in the cereal. I'd be looking for the garlic in the guguzio dish. And my grandfather, being such a kind man that he was, if he found garlic in his, he would always scoop it out and give it to me. He also let me drink wine and beer when I sat next to him as a kid on Sunday dinner, so I guess that helped also. We're going to start the next dish. So remember, we have the pastiria in the oven. We have the zucchini cooking, which again we call the guguzio. And now we're going to go into that fresh peas. I mean, peas we know come in a can. For a lot of our kids, that's all we think about. Frozen peas or peas that come in a can. We never get the actual pea pod, or it's rare, and shuck the peas, which is really the way you want to eat peas. These are so wonderful, so sweet. You pick through them, make sure there's no little stems that might be hiding out, discard those, and then you have your fresh, wonderful peas that we're going to just do a dish on the fly. This is something I'm just kind of making up as I go along. I saw those fresh peas. The next thing I thought of was some Italian unsmoked bacon, pancetta. So we have the pancetta all nicely diced up in beautiful little pieces. And this is such a time saver. This is what takes dishes from the point of thinking of them to actually making them. Because when you go into a supermarket and you start to think about all the different things you have to prepare and cut up and bring home and get set, you might think, you know what, that's just going to be too much work. But finding that pancetta already diced up just saves you the time of washing a knife, a cutting board, and standing there dicing it up. So this is a big time saver. This will save me 10 minutes easily. So I have my fresh peas, my pancetta. I have a lemon that we're going to put some lemon zest, and this is actually a lemon zester. It's a grater. And we'll simply grate the outside of the lemon rind, which is the zest. The outside coloring, the skin, is where all of the essential oils live in the lemon. That's where your true lemon essence, lemon flavor is. Underneath is the white pith, and then beyond that is the flesh where we get the juice, which is wonderful. The white pith in between, no real use for. So we're just going to zest off the skin, and then we still have the whole lemon to use for juice on something else. We have a little bit of chopped parsley, and of course our garlic. As I've said many times, I think I do just about everything with garlic in it. So I'm going to trim the pieces of garlic and take the little end off where it normally connects to the bulb. Again, we get this garlic and we can buy it already peeled in a wonderful little container, and it comes from Gilroy, California. Gilroy is the garlic capital of the United States. And I think it produces some of the best garlic that you can possibly get. There is some garlic that you get from some of the Asian countries that by the time it gets here, it's already a little bit old, and we don't get the same wonderful flavor from the garlic that we see coming out of Gilroy. So again, that's going to save me just a whole lot of time. So I'm going to slice this garlic up in nice thin slices. And again, while I'm looking at you folks and looking at the camera, when you do this at home, you're going to have to pay attention to what you're doing. You know, again, learning your knife skills is so very important, because not only to keep you safe, but to allow you to cut these items up and do it without having too much time pass and having your arms sore and just get very tired, keeps cooking exciting, and that's really what we want to do. I've got a little saute pan going here. I can see my zucchini is just bubbling away nicely. I'm going to lower this down just a hair. Put a little oil, regular olive oil. We never heat extra virgin olive oil in our pan. Raise the flame up. You have to be so very careful not to burn garlic. If you allow garlic to burn, you're going to have a very, very bitter dish. So if you're ever cutting garlic and you start to cook it and you lose sight of what you're doing, start all over. A couple of cloves of garlic, a few drops of olive oil. Not a huge deal as far as cost. It's the difference in having a dish that's wonderful and memorable to having a dish that's awful and memorable. And as many times as I remember all the good dishes, I always remember all the bad meals I've ever had, and try and keep track of what went wrong with those meals, whether I was preparing it or whether someone else. Yes, I've prepared some bad meals because none of us are born with the tools in our hands. We all have to learn from someplace, and that's what we're all about. We're about teaching you all these little techniques and little tips and trying to share some fun family stories that hopefully you can take back and share with other folks and have just an entertaining time while you're cooking. So we're going to get this garlic nice and golden brown, and then we're going to add our pancetta. Again, pancetta is bacon, but it's Italian unsmoked bacon. It's a cured dish, but you don't have the heavy smoky flavor. Now if you say, hey, I love that heavy smoky flavor, you can use regular bacon, and then this dish will just become smoky in flavor and smoky in nature. So I want to toast around this pancetta and garlic, and I'm staying close and stirring it because I've got the flame raised up a bit, and I don't want that garlic to start to burn, while I'd like the pancetta to get a little bit golden as well. Requires some tending to. Now, some of these dishes that we learn about from our parents and grandparents, they're developed out of different needs. This zucchini dish, I suspect one of the reasons they made it because it was a very cheap, economical, yet healthy dish. So I'm suspecting that this came out of the Depression times. And to add to this dish, instead of using it as a side dish, my grandmother and great-grandmother sometimes would break up some stale bread and serve it with that to fortify it a little bit more and give it a little bit more body so it would be like an entire dish. The other thing we can do is to add some protein.